Welcome to Mainly Facts Weekly Compilation, where we showcase the best stories for the week. If you missed our videos, this one's for you. Ensure you never miss out on our latest videos by subscribing and activating notifications. Whether you're engaged in household chores or simply yearning for something fascinating, our content is tailor-made for your enjoyment. So, without any hesitation, let's get started. What's a very disturbing fact almost nobody knows? Viewer edition. You want to know a disturbing fact? I'm pretty sure I even might have learned this from one of these videos. But I'm older than every living dog. The oldest dog on record was 31, and I'm older than that, which means every dog that was alive when I was born is gone now. And it might not disturb you, but it disturbs me. Story 1. I was an infant in the 80s and had to have a few surgeries done. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if I went through some of them fully consciously. It would explain a few things. I don't honestly believe that doctors thought infants don't feel pain. Anyone who has vaccinated a baby knows damn well that they feel pain. The real belief was probably that anesthesia is a complicated and risky procedure, especially on someone that's so small, and babies can't really complain and probably won't remember the experience afterwards, so it doesn't really matter if they're in pain or not, if the end result is them getting better and the risk of anesthesia isn't worth it. Now that anesthetizing infants is more routine and the risk is low enough, the medical community finds it more palatable to say, we simply didn't know, versus, yeah, we're going to subject your baby to unimaginable suffering that we don't even subject animals or POWs to because it's easier. So yeah, this is referencing in the original video that these comments were made under. There was, the fact was that up until like the 70s or 80s or some nonsense, doctors claimed that infants don't feel pain and therefore don't need anesthesia before, undergoing a procedure. Which, yeah, this explanation makes sense. But either way, just bonkers. Story 2. First fact, I was bitten on the arm by a drunk chick at a Cradle of Filth concert back in 2018. She was trying to force her way past me when I was up the barricade, and I refused to let her take my spot. She thought biting me was a good idea. She got hauled up by security, tetanus shot, wound cleaning, and a month worth of heavy-duty antibiotics, and a month worth of antiretrovirals in case of HIV transmission. Out of pocket was over $1,000. First off, I was a little bit shocked to read that you were bit in the arm by a human until I saw that it was at a Cradle of Filth concert. That's no judgment at all. I've never been to one of their concerts, but I have had friends who have, so fun times. Also, that sucks. And the fact that, you should have been able to, go to security and be like, can I have her information? Because she needs to pay for this. Story 3. Worked in the Texas Medical Center for 25 years. The St. Joseph story about the resident doctor's decapitation is even worse than it sounds. The elevator was stuck with about 18 inches of opening at the top. The doctor opened the inner door and was attempting to crawl out onto the floor. He got his head out, and at that exact moment, the elevator went down to the next floor, severing his neck. The headless body fell back into the elevator car with a lone woman passenger. She was stuck in the elevator for 45 minutes with the body before the maintenance staff got her out. Story 4. I remember seeing Sandeep Kaur's face, not attached to her, in a Guinness Book of World Records when I was a child. It's to her scalp, too, pigtails and all. Disturbing as heck, but also absolutely amazing that she survived that the transplant was successful, and that she's doing well and studying medicine. It's nice to hear what she's doing with her life, and that she's succeeding after such a traumatic incident. Story 5. Concerning Story 15, as someone who studies chemistry, there are way worse things than some acid that melts your skin away. Sure, acid is painful, but there are things that'd go mostly unnoticed until it's too late. Things that'd show up poorly on a tox screen, etc. Many ways to use chemicals as a weapon. It's actually kind of scary to think about when you know that everyone who wants it can start a study in chemistry, and most information is available online nowadays. You just need to know how to combine information that makes it dangerous. Story 6. When my oldest sister was born, according to my mother, her head was in a weird position, so a doctor had to adjust her head when she was coming out. When he did that, her collarbone broke without anyone realizing, and she cried nonstop for a few weeks until my mom went to the doctors and got an x-ray. Imagine if that was in the 80s. Story 7. As someone who grew up in Minnesota, I have to remind you Duluth, Minnesota is the farthest inland port with direct access to the ocean. When you also factor in the Iron Range and how many metals are mined out of northern Minnesota, it would actually be an ideal spot to bomb to shut down trade in the U.S.
All right, to explain, there was some fact about, places getting nuked or bombed or something, and I said I felt safe because I live in Minnesota, and people, please don't correct me on that. And this person decided to correct me. And they decided to correct me by bringing up Duluth, Minnesota, a city I once lived in and my favorite city in the entire United States, and then decided to bring up the Iron Range in northern Minnesota, where I was born and grew up. So thanks a lot. Also, a lot of actual steel production is now outsourced to China and stuff like that, so it really actually wouldn't be as big of a shutdown to U.S. trade as it might have been, say, 30 years ago.
Story 8. Concerning story 24, it's called Depression. Vitamin D has a significant impact on our body and mind. I started to look more into it after coming out of a depressive episode and realized what really helped was going outside and eventually going on walks. Open your curtains and get some sunlight. Story 9. Your eyes are not recognized by your immune system. This is mostly to perfect swelling from minor scratches, which is common, but also means that if an immune cell got in there, you could easily go blind. Story 10. Story 4 reminded me of a convo I had with someone a while back. I was talking with a few of my friends one day, and we got on the topic of weird medical history. I mentioned the fact about babies not being given anesthesia, and me and two of my friends all agreed that was really weird. Then the third friend of mine that was at the table with us said, "Yeah, that's strange, but I don't see a problem with it. The babies are too young to remember it, so it doesn't matter if it hurts or not." Me and my other two friends looked at each other, then looked at him, and we all kind of just did an awkward laugh until the third friend said, "What's so funny?" And then we stopped laughing, and one of us asked him if he was joking or not, and he said, "No, I'm not joking. The babies are too little to remember the pain of surgery without anesthesia, so it doesn't matter if they feel the pain." Y'all, this man was dead serious when he said it was okay to not give babies anesthesia during surgery because they're too little to remember the pain. Me and the other two friends spent like 5 minutes trying to convince him how wrong that is, but he wouldn't budge. I'm no longer friends with that guy for unrelated reasons, but holy crap, that was an awkward conversation. Story 11. I've always found the cordyceps and other fungi like that really interesting. Over time, we've seen it being able to control larger and larger insects like tarantulas, moths, and butterflies. Humans don't have anything to worry about. Our body temperatures are too warm for the cordyceps to survive. Although, in a few thousand years, it's possible for it to evolve to at least smaller mammals. It's also pretty cool how that concept is actually taken into popular horror games such as The Last of Us and Choo Choo Charles.
So, I was with you through this whole thing. Cordyceps is really interesting of the various insects that it infects. And I think I haven't finished The Last of Us yet. But, and I've never played the game, and I never will. There was the talk of like, if it suddenly evolved to survive the temperature of the human body, and that was the whole, conceit of that story. The thing I'm really stuck on here is, what the hell is Choo Choo Charles?
Story 12. There's one for you. Testicular torsion and ovarian torsion, there's a woman version as well, can happen at any time for any reason. Hurts like hell, like a kick right on that place, and the pain never stops, and makes you monoball. Oh, and most cases occur in the sleep. Good night, friends. Story 13. The gamma ray fact is true, except the vaporizing thing. It would probably not contain a lot of heat, but it would definitely strip us from our ozone layer and destroy the atmosphere, but it wouldn't immediately vaporize us, which makes it much, much worse, as it would be a fast but not instantaneous end, most likely. It would be horrible, but the chance is pretty slim. Might only have happened at one point already, though, at one mass extinction. Gun shop employees, what are some red flags that caused you to deny a sale of a firearm? Viewer edition.
All right, folks. just going to come out and say this. I'm going to get terms wrong, especially gun names and calibers and stuff. I grew up in a house that had a lot of guns. There were more guns than people, and I had 3 siblings and an uncle and cousin who were with us most of the time. I was raised on guns, and I don't know a thing about them, so I'm gonna get the stuff wrong. I don't know about your MLB 2237s or your WIIs. I don't know any of these stupid terms, so don't get at me in the comments because I don't know your terminology. Or do. I don't care. Story 1. Personal story. A family member of mine who was struggling with mental health issues, think extreme paranoia and anger, decided one day that they had had enough of the rest of the family lying to them and made threats against the family before they left to try to buy a gun. The clerk at the gun store was a family friend who realized something was off as her family never really cared about guns. We didn't have a need for them. So the clerk started probing and asked my relative what had caused the sudden interest in firearms. My relative, bless their soul, looked straight at the clerk and said, "Oh, well, I want one in case a wildcat comes by my house." We live a good 300 to 400 miles away from wildcat country. The clerk realized something was wrong and, as we later learned, had quickly figured out my relative was just barely keeping it together. So they fed my relative a lie about first-time gun purchases now needing a mandatory training course and sent my relative on their way. Then called the rest of the family. Disaster averted. That's kind of a scary personal story to know that a relative was doing something like that. I don't know where I land on all the gun issues. I think it's a complex and nuanced issues, but for the most part, I'm not a big fan of them and having them around. But boy, oh boy, if I thought that a family member who was having those kind of issues was then trying to buy a gun, I'd probably be a little worried. I hope that you're okay. Story 2. Had a similar occurrence to story 4. A couple walk-ins looking at guns and are helped by a coworker. The guy asks things like, which gun is the best for killing people? The coworker awkwardly tells him any gun can kill. The guy picks out one he wants, to which the coworker flat out refuses to sell him and has to explain that you can't just ask those sorts of questions and be surprised they won't sell to you. Both people start yelling and screaming in his face and threaten to kill him once he gets off work. They leave, then come back a bit later to scream some more before being escorted out by a manager. About 20 minutes later, we get a call from another gun store up the road telling us not to sell anything to a couple fitting the description of the couple that came in. Can I just say, I am all for any gun control law that keeps people like that from buying guns. Because a gun is a very serious thing. And if you're gonna joke about it, then you can't cross a line, and that line is not very far out there. So, this is going to be a tough one.
Story 3. I've worked for multiple stores, big and small, selling firearms. I worked with a guy who was one of the nicest people I knew, always made you smile, and was a joy to work with. One day I had a gentleman want to buy an old used shotgun and asked me to check the choke of the barrel. The choke is like a funnel per se that affects the spread of the shot. I go and grab our gauge and check. I told the gentleman it was a cylinder bore, no funneling, because someone had sawn down the barrel at some point and took off that part. The gentleman started making quite the fuss about this and kept ranting about how the barrel said it was a certain choke while I kept showing him the gauge. Hearing the commotion, this super friendly coworker walks out and asks politely if he could help with something. This guy goes off about the choke issue. My coworker simply tells him what I said in the first place. The gentleman responds with, "You don't know your job. I could do better." He was foreign, so forgive his grammar. The room went ice cold as I saw my nice coworker clench his jaw. My first thought was, he's gonna kill him. Thankfully, he only reached across the table and took the shotgun and said, "I'm sorry, there's not going to be a sale today." The gentleman attempted to scoff, but it came out as a squeak for some reason and walked off laughing at us.
See, I like this story because it's really just a, sales associate of some type getting to just tell off a customer that they don't like. And you don't get those opportunities often enough in sales. You always have to be nice. The customer's always right. Blah, blah, blah. Well, there are those times where a customer crosses a line and you're able to just go, goodbye. And it feels so good. So I like this story.
Story 4. Got a happy short story for you. I walked into a local gun shop I frequent every month or so for ammo, and they were selling a gun to an old lady. I thought it was kind of cool that this 70-plus-year-old lady was buying a handgun, and then it went from cool to hilarious. I was getting my ammo from the clerk at the ammo counter when I overheard her say, "What kind of ammo do I need for pest control with this?" The store owner said, "410 birdshot." My head turns around to see that this lady was buying a freaking Taurus Judge. For those that don't know, it's basically a big butt revolver that shoots shotgun shells. I couldn't help but laugh with the ammo clerk as she walked out with her new gun, case in one hand, cane in the other. Effing love this country sometimes. Story 5. Fun story. Once upon a time, I worked in a pawn shop that also sold brand new guns, so that was a majority of our sales. One day, this older man came in and wanted to buy a pistol. We got his ID and ran a background check, which was immediately denied. That's unusual. Normally, when someone is approved, it would come back fast, but when they were denied, it could take a while to get it back. We told him it was denied, and he got his ID and quickly left. He seemed to be in a hurry, which was also strange. Not 5 minutes after he left, 2 police cars came screaming into the parking lot. They came in with their hands on their weapons, asking if we had seen this man. Apparently, he had his wife locked up at the house and was on a mission to buy a gun to execute her. Story 6. Never worked in a gun shop, but I had a friend who did something stupid and got himself a felony. Somehow only ended up with house arrest, not sure how. After completing his house arrest, paying his fines, etc., all of his firearms were transferred to me with the agreement in place beforehand that after his daughter's 18th birthday, I would take her to a gun shop, sell the guns, and the money was to be used to help her pay for college. Fast forward to the day after the firearms were transferred into my name. He calls me up and tells me that now that he is off house arrest, fines paid, etc., that I can transfer all the guns into his wife's name after not only did the gun shop owner, but also his PO that under no circumstances was it legal for me to sell, transfer any of the firearms to anyone who lives in the same residence as him or anyone who might give him access to them while he was standing right there. Needless to say, the day after her graduation, we sold them all and the money helped her get books and so forth to begin her college education.
Just why? Why do people have to be like that? Like, hey, can you do this thing for me that, so we're following the law, and then, like, after you do this stuff, it's like, okay, but now secretly break the law for me. No, you're the one in trouble for all this crap. Why? No, just do the thing that you're supposed to do. I mean, good Lord, if someone skipped part of that story and is just listening to my comment, there is no context. I'm just rambling, but this kind of stuff just frustrates me.
Story 7. I worked in a gun shop in southern New Hampshire. In addition to this, I'm a recovered alcoholic, been sober over 25 years, and a disabled veteran. One morning around 10 a.m., a man came in who was so drunk I could smell him before he got to the counter. The smell was so bad, it kind of triggered me, and I had to ask my manager to deal with the man. The guy was even drunker than I suspected because he wanted us to buy his 5-year-old rifle at new/mint value, cash, which we never did anyways. His face was completely flushed and his eyes were running. I know what being grossly drunk looks like. He drove to the shop in that condition, the manager told him to leave, and may have called the cops on him. What gender-based double standard infuriates you? Viewer edition.
Folks, I make no secret about the fact that I am not one who believes in conforming to gender stereotypes if you don't want to. As a guy, I'm known for painting my nails. I've put on mascara occasionally, but frankly, these lashes don't necessarily need it. I wear flashy, flamboyant clothing and all that stuff, but I also do woodworking, and I enjoy doing yard work, and, other manly-esque things. I don't know, and, I think people should be able to do what they want, and I was really encouraged by a lot of your comments, and so let's share some of those now. Story 1. A double standard I hate is that you can't hit women. One time in school, there was this semi-fat kid and this one girl kept on playing with his feelings, making fun of him because of his weight. What she did affected me because he was my friend too, so one day she sneaks up to him and pinches his chub and laughs. Her actions passed me off, so I didn't want to get in trouble, so walked with her and said, personally, I would have apologized, but honestly, what did he do to you for you to think that's okay? Of course, she said some smart butt stuff. Well, what are you gonna do, throw him into me? That would definitely hurt. She proceeded to push me and laugh. What she didn't expect is for me to throw, in my opinion, the meanest punch I have ever thrown in my life. Principal saw everything on the cameras, came to the hallway immediately, took me to the principal's office. She was taken to the nurse's office because her nose was really bloody. The result was me being suspended for 2 weeks, had to apologize to her family, and write a letter promising I wouldn't do anything like that again. But her parents made her go to a new school because it was too dangerous. I didn't get grounded, though. My parents took it as a manner in self-defense, which was great, but I haven't heard anything about her since. I'm 23 now. I was 15. I'm torn. I think that, if you are being, attacked by someone, be they male or female, you have the right to defend yourself. Absolutely. But at the same time, I know she pinched your friend, and that's not cool. Nothing that she did is cool, and I don't want to defend this girl at all. She said some words and stuff to you, and you resorted with violence, and I don't typically like that. Did she deserve it? Maybe. I'm not the person to make the call on that, but I don't know. You responded to some, mild invasion of body space with her pinching your friend. Not okay. And her spouting off some real crap from her mouth. And you hit her with a big old punch. So, I don't know, folks. What do you think in the comments? I'm torn with these things, but I don't think that this was necessarily a situation that I would have resorted to violence personally. Story 2. Me and my girlfriend are a lesbian couple. We're both 19 and just moved into our new apartment a week ago. Because of this, we're going to hardware and furniture stores on the daily. We constantly get asked whose brother/dad is putting stuff together. I'm the one putting it together. My dad taught me how to do this at a very young age, and I could put stuff together with no supervision by the time I was 7. I'm an only child, and my dad has severe back problems, and my girlfriend has a terrible relationship with her little brother, who's only 14, and her close-minded parents. Yeah, you're going to run into people like that all the time. And I hate that for you. I'm sorry that you have to go through that. Because I don't know how long it's going to take for a lot of people to shake off that mindset. I grew up with a mother who was significantly better at anything carpentry, mechanical. Like, if I have car problems, I've gone to my mother. When I was working on building stuff, my mother. And yeah, I've experienced these things too when I'm going, I've been picking out nail polish, stuff like that. I get people who are like, oh, well, what colors does your girlfriend or wife usually wear? And I'm just like, this is for me, and I need something that's going to go with a very loud outfit. The best I can say is in those situations, you just straight up tell them, I'm putting it together. And you don't even have to say it in a way that's like, take that, the patriarchy or whatever. Just say it in a plain, matter-of-fact way. Because I feel like that gets them just a little bit more when you're like, yeah, I'm the one putting it together, dummy.
Story 3. Something that I don't understand is that when I was younger, I had this phase where I absolutely hated pink, despised it, even though it was my favorite color a year before. And my parents were completely fine with that, and to this day my room is like 75% blue, but when my then 8-year-old brother chose to use a pink towel one time, my parents ended up spending 7 minutes explaining to him that he wasn't going to use a pink towel because he was a boy. Story 4. Honestly, I hate how both genders go through sexism. I honestly feel like this word or term shouldn't exist just because we are weaker, more emotional. We should be able to choose our options, not being told to toughen up. You shouldn't do that. Let the boys/girls handle that. Yes, it may sound stupid, but we have to remind ourselves, we are the ones who created sexism. We decided that females and males have to be put in certain categories or else we get slandered. It infuriates me how both genders have to be told what to do or endless suffering of slander and weakness are shoved into you. So this is a message to anyone who is dealing with these jaw-gnawing comments out there. You are not weak just because you cry. You are not weak just because you are seen as lesser than anyone else. Crying is not a sign of weakness. It shows strength. You are proud to show your emotions to someone. You can choose your own path, not what somebody tells you to do. You can do anything, even if you're a girl or boy or any other gender. Don't let anything stop you. I'm saying these things because even as a female, I get based on it. I'm shown as a crybaby, so please do not think any other gender is lesser than another. Thank you and have a good night. Edit. I'm aware biologically men are stronger than females. However, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how some people don't have the decency to treat each gender the same. Some people treat others awfully or differently than their own just because they themselves are different, body-wise, skin color, gender, etc. I'm not sure why some people don't understand that because I'm not talking about biology. I'm talking about how old genders go through sexism, and I think that sexism shouldn't even exist in the first place. We should all just treat each other equally. I know that's not how the world works, and you can't just say, oh, well, we should treat each other equally and expect people to listen, but even if that's the case, we can at least try. I'm really just trying to share an opinion, and it's okay that some people might disagree with me, and it's my fault for not making this clear.
Hey, for what it's worth, I agree. No one gender is better than the other. Emotions should be expressed. Yeah, there are so many of these little things that no matter if you're a guy or a girl or non-binary or whatever, you're going to be dealing with people who just have these stereotypes. And the best I can say is, God, I'm going to get corny and bring up my favorite Shakespeare quote, "To thine own self be true." That's the best I can say. And the more and more of us do that, the more the rest of the world might just have to actually accept that's the way it is.
Story 5. I hate how when someone sees a masculine woman, it's considered cool and normal, but the second they see a feminine man is when it's not okay. Feminine men are gay, sissies, twinks, and constantly looked down on, but masculine women are bad but tomboys. Can't we just respect both tomboys and tomgirls?
I like feminine men. I like masculine women. I like feminine women. I like masculine men. I like people who don't fit into either of those stereotypes and don't conform to one gender or change, or people who are exploring new things that they might not stick with. Everyone's growing and changing and different, and I think that you are all beautiful as long as you're being true to yourself and you're not hurting anyone else.
Story 6. As a woman myself, well, teenager, I've had a few double standards of my own where my family was saying it was okay for my male cousin to not want kids, but when I said I didn't want kids or a marriage, they just stared at me and kept saying I'll change my mind and things happen. I do not want kids because I'm mentally unstable, but they say I'll be a perfect mother? No, I will not be a perfect mother, as I lash out at many young children in my family already and have caused minor injury due to my anger issues and mental health. I'm working on it, yes. Edit. To the few people who have deleted comments siding with my family, I will not be having children. I have high-functioning autism and CPTSD and a few underlying conditions. I have very low impulse control and I'm easily angry. If a baby crying or screaming sets me off, I will end up harming that child. I've done it before with family members' children and felt horrible because I don't like hurting people. I will not be a selfish person and put a child's life in danger. If I bring it into the world, I will not be the person to make a child's life hell. Therefore, I am refusing to have children. Please keep pro-life and pro-motherhood at all costs, no matter the situation, out of my comments. If I were to have a child and seriously harm it due to my mental health, you would be the same people to turn around and call me a horrible mother in person. I already have to care for a dying sibling throughout my childhood, and I've lost my childhood. I'd much rather spend my time as an adult recovering from my traumas and working on my mental health with my partner whom I love very much. If I do have a child, it will be very far into my life when I've learned how to control my mood swings, but that will take years and years. Sorry if this doesn't make sense reading it, though, if you're even reading through English, and math isn't my best subject or best interest. I do way better in artistic and logical fields. I like to observe.
There is nothing wrong with anyone who doesn't want to have kids for any reason. If you do not want to have kids because of dealing with your mental health and stuff like that, that's okay. And if you change your mind down the line and you realize you're in a place where you want to have kids, it's okay that you change your mind. And if you just say, I don't want to have kids because I don't want to have kids, that's my choice. Me and my partner, we don't want kids solely because we just don't want kids. We're happy without them. Yeah, don't let other people bully you with that kind of stuff. You have every right to not want kids, and you have every right to change your mind later if you want to. But to all those people who are just like, well, one day you'll see. Shut up, those people.
What's your best truth or dare gone wrong moment? Viewer edition.
Oh, am I excited to hear all of your stories about truth or dares gone wrong. I know that we're all going to stick to the prompt and it's all going to be gone wrong. Not like on the original video where there were multiple people who are like, they dared me to kiss this girl and then we got married and it's happily ever after, because that's not gone wrong. I want to hear about your pain. I'm kidding. I actually like the positive stories. We need some happy endings, because some of these are just gonna hurt. Story 1. Not that our dares were crazy, it's just that how we played it was weird. This was like 4th grade, so we decided to play Truth or Dare. We got bored of playing it normally, so we decided to add a twist. It was now called Spin the Bottle Truth or Dare. So kids were spinning bottles to decide who's picking Truth or Dare and who gives that Truth or Dare. Eventually, parents and teachers knew, so we had to stop playing it like that. You know, the way that this reads in the end is just like the parents and teachers found out and they were like, you can't play it that way. You're mixing 2 games. No, you just pick people like normal with your truth or dare. Now you 4th graders, someone dares someone else to like eat all the condiments in the fridge or something stupid. Have fun, kids. Get rid of that dang bottle. Story 2. Not a gone wrong moment, but still funny. One guy in our class was already in bed, not because he was tired, but because he was more comfortable just laying down there and was waiting for his turn. When it came, he picked truth. Girls immediately asked if he was gay. He literally felt that he had to sit up for this one. When he did, he looked around for a moment, shook his head slightly while saying no, and then went back to bed. We were laughing for a good 3 minutes at his absolutely shocked and filled with something close to the horror face he made when they asked that. Some guys get so insecure if you ask them something like that, which, by the way, folks, I don't think that you should necessarily ask that kind of stuff from folks. They'll come out when they're ready. Let people come out in their own time. It's a difficult thing for a lot of people. A little less so nowadays because it's more accepted, but believe me, back when I was in high school, growing up in the great white north where things were pretty conservative, it was not so easy. So, yeah, folks, if someone does ask you, you can just be like, no, it's that easy.
Story 3. Not a truth or dare, but I remember a prank that someone tried to pull on me that backfired. I was a bit socially awkward, so she was trying to freak me out to an audience by telling me she was gay. I didn't care and just replied, good for you. Unbeknownst to her, our head of year stood behind her and also heard her and congratulated her on her self-confidence. The girl was horrified that her teacher now believed her to be gay and spent the rest of the lunch break trying to convince him that she wasn't. Ironically, I'm pretty sure the girl did actually come out as a lesbian a few years later whilst still at the school. Story 4. I had a friend whose dad was a cop in high school. She had stolen his handcuffs one day and handcuffed me to this girl I liked. Had to get through the rest of the day with flimsy excuses on why I was in all her classes suddenly. I can't believe it worked. We were stuck together until like 10 p.m. when we finally gave up and called the sheriff's office to bring a key out. I ended up in a relationship with her for almost a year after that. To the girl that handcuffed us, thank you. You're a bad A. Story 5. This story is a bit long since it was being done for about a business week. In the 5th grade, my friend group wanted to play Truth or Dare at recess. Then my friend, let's call her Ella, dared someone to tell who their crush is. One thing you should know is that I make more masculine than feminine friends. I was a 10-year-old female. Anyway, Ella asked, let's call him Jason, who his crush was. If you're looking for a juicy story, you might want to click off because this was honestly just cringe and very practical for kids who are about to get into middle school. Anyway, Jason called everyone in the friend group except me. He called Ella and 2 other people in the friend group, which were also boys. This kept on happening for many days and probably lasted for about a week. After a week of being ignored and feeling very third-wheeled, I went to my friend's pool party that had 4 other people, including Ella. I wanted to find out what Jason was hiding because a 10-year-old girl's instincts, along with being asked to not hear what they're talking about after a dare like that, made it obvious what I asked Ella. Ella said truth, and I asked her who Jason's crush was. Turns out he didn't like me, but a girl, let's call her Jessie. I seriously should have just confronted Ella about this and not asked her who it was in front of other people because even though promised that Jessie wouldn't confront Jason about it and Jessie had a boyfriend, so she felt even more uncomfortable by the fact Jason was confronted the next day. We went to hang out with the friend group as normal before Jason said, Jessie came up to me and said that she heard something that she didn't want to hear at the party. Did you tell her, Ella? Ella doesn't like to lie, so she succumbed. We explained the situation and we both apologized. I started thinking that I should have pulled her aside instead of confronting her in front of everyone, and it made me feel really embarrassed. But for some reason, she took the blame even though I asked the question. To this day, we're in high school with Jesse, so I don't really know if he still likes Jessie or not because he's starting to give hints that he likes me. Anyway, this was overall just kids being kids, so it's not that good of a story, but it's still a memory I cringe at.
Look, we don't need to debate whether or not it's a good story and anything like that. It's a story you shared, and I'm happy that you did. Also, I think we all just need to accept the fact, or I think at least everyone my age accepts the fact that Truth or Dare is a way for teenagers to find out who has a crush on who. That's 95% of the reason why the game exists. The other 5% is a mix of seeing, butts and stuff for the first time and getting friends to, eat or do stupid things.
Story 6. Not gone wrong, but more gone great. Me and my brother and this girl I liked were at a party and we were playing Truth or Dare and I asked her what her type was, and she listed a bunch of traits that I have. A week later, one of my friends told her that I liked her and she got one of her friends to tell me that she likes me back. Another week later, I asked her out. We've been dating for about 2 years. Story 7. Game of Truth or Dare where my best friend made my crush tell her his crush. Turned out to be me. Fast forward 3 years and I have anxiety and trust issues after he led me on for a year and then ghosted me. Then came back another year later wanting to pick our friendship back up before ghosting me again. Story 8. As a kid, 11 or 12, I was so desperate to be liked that I would take any dare. When among a group including the kids of my parents, friends, kids, and my older brother, I was dared to hide in the closet for 30 minutes while they continued to play the game. Sadly, I gladly did it. I was a very sad child. Story 9. Not gone wrong, but I was dared to make out with a girl who would later become a playmate. Nice girl, and due to weird random run-ins thousands of miles away from where we lived at the time, we still stay in touch. She got a laugh out of the time I saw a coworker looking at her spread and said, "Oh, that's so-and-so, made out with her in high school." Students, what is your best story about the worst teacher you ever had, viewer edition?
Fans of the channel, you know how much I love a good teacher and how much I despise a bad teacher. And today we want to know not just about the bad teachers, we want to know about your experiences with the worst teachers. And it's going to make me mad, and I'm going to have angry comments, and I might say stuff that I probably shouldn't, but just know that it comes from a place of compassion for students because students deserve the very best, and these teachers aren't going to give them the best, they're going to give them the worst. Let's go. Story 1. Had a pre-kindergarten teacher in the 90s that absolutely hated the fact that my first language was Tagalog and did everything she could to shame me that I couldn't speak English properly. My self-esteem plummeted to where I didn't even want to speak Tagalog at all, even at home. Fast forward to first grade, and this teacher I had absolutely hated the boys in her class and gave special treatment to the girls. She made it her mission to humiliate the boys in her class for even the slightest mistake or ask questions that she considered stupid. It was a repeated thing for me, along with many other boys, ending the school day crying. The school didn't care to do anything about it, and my parents finally pulled me out after they realized it wasn't getting any better at that school. Both of those teachers make me so sad, because a teacher's job is partially to teach and educate all students equally, but also, school is about social education. It's about learning to be around others, and it's a teacher's job to nurture that and give them a comfortable environment to be around their peers and all that. And those teachers failed in that regard, and I hope that they get better. Story 2. I had a kindergarten teacher who was racist towards the whole class, basically. She was an African-American woman who hated all the whiteness in the class except for one kid who was African-American. She would purposely tell the class to shut up, punish us for the most obscure of reasons, gave the one kid possibly all the love in the class to the point that he didn't like it, and talked crap about us to our parents, no less. Whenever a child got injured, because we were 5 and we would cry because we were dumb, she'd tell the assistant teacher to deal with us, not giving a damn unless it was that one kid. Then he'd get a beeline to the nurse as if he was dying. Luckily, none of us hated the kid because he was chill and was fun to be around, but we all hated the teacher, at least to the amount a 5-year-old could. The assistant was honestly super sweet and caring, the saving grace of the class, and she even hated the main teacher as well. I guess a good thing to come from this was that our school was a fairly small one, so news would fly around faster than a hummingbird looking for flowers. The worst thing that happened, and was the tipping point of getting her teaching license removed, was because of my twin brother. What happened was that he had attempted to do a trick on the monkey bars in the playground. It was the one where you would snake your legs over and under the bar and hook your feet at the end for support. He forgot to do the feet segment and went face first into the mulch/sand. He screamed his head off to where the other students were trying to help get the dirt off him as tears, snot, and blood was coming out of his face. The head teacher, in all of this, said, paraphrasing, "Oh, they're fine. Just toss some bandages on him, will you, Mrs. Assistant? I have to keep an eye on the others. Don't send him to the nurse." The assistant took my brother inside, took the bigger, sticky bandages, which she knew was not going to cover him at all, and did her best to clean the injury and calm my brother down, which did work for the time being. Once we got home, oh boy, did our mom get concerned and peed. She's a hit first, ask later sort of woman, and told Dad, and he followed up on the anger. They contacted the school nurse and explained the situation. She got peed too and filed a report on the teacher. It also helped that the nurse knew our family very well and would be like a third parent to us during school hours. What was found out was that my brother had broken his nose and his eyes and jaw got badly bruised. It looked like he was on a boxing ring and lost sort of injuries. The nurse and my parents told the principal and her higher-ups about what happened, and that racist teacher lost her license while the assistant got the leading role for the remaining year. My brother recovered very well after the incident, and terror was no more. It is shocking to me that a teacher could be that dismissive of the injuries and emotional state of kindergartners. That is like a young enough age where it's like you're basically barely learning addition at that point in time. And to have a kid fall down and bleeding and to tell someone to be like, don't send him to the nurse, that does seem just unrealistically cruel. I am sorry to all those kids that had to deal with that kind of stuff. It's not okay. Like I said, teachers, you have to be concerned with the well-being of all of your students. It doesn't matter how any of them might differ from the others. It's your job to nurture all of them.
Story 3. In 8th grade, the principal pinned me against the wall by the throat. I hardly even did anything. To say that my parents were mad would be an understatement. They were furious. So furious that they almost filed a lawsuit against the school. Story 4. My teacher in grade 5 was overtly ableist and essist to me, despite us both being biologically female. I was being bullied by literally every boy in my class except one, and she never did anything about it. She wouldn't punish the boys and made it seem like it was my fault for being a victim. I feel like she singled me out because of my autism because she acted casual to everyone else yet was dismissive and aggressive to me if I ever did anything wrong or didn't understand something. There was one time where my main bully pulled back my chair and I fell backwards. I'd sit on both my legs under me because it was comfortable and I was very small in comparison to my classmates. My bully started on this BS where it was my fault for falling backwards because of how I sat, and Ms. B did nothing, just said, "Don't do it again." Didn't ask if I was okay, didn't send him out or give him any kind of punishment. She just sat by while I was being tormented by a group of 10+ boys because they had figured out some triggers with my autism and misophonia. Now that I'm 18, I was 10 to 11 then, I'm like 99% sure she let me get harassed because she had some sort of weird bias against autistic people. I did also have a slightly darker skin tone than the rest of my classmates. This was in Tasmania. It's like the white bread Alabama version for Australia. But I don't think it would have been that much for it to be racist. My mom's Hispanic, and while she doesn't have a super dark skin tone, I've inherited enough for there to be a slight difference in color between me and my full white friends. Story 5. My second elementary school class teacher. She just wrote off my neurodivergence, undiagnosed at the time, as me being a lost cause. Because I was the outsider kid and got bullied, she put the most rambunctious boy in the class next to me in hopes he wouldn't talk to the weird kid and be quiet. I'm very thankful to this boy for instead befriending me. In Germany, high schools are usually separated into 3 levels. Hochschule, which offers a simplified graduation after year 8 or a slightly better one after year 10 and is intended for those going into uneducated work. Realschule, which has a graduation after year 10 and is intended for those who want to go into trades. And Gymnasium, which has the Abitur graduation after year 12 and is typically required to go into academics. By the end of elementary school, students got a recommendation for which high school type they were best suited for. Mind you, I was blatantly not suited for trade or physical labor in general. In fact, PE terrified me. Anyway, this teacher gave me a recommendation for Realschule along with the oh-so-kind advice, actually your grades and abilities are more Hochschule level, but I gave you Realschule to be nice. My first class teacher at gymnasium immediately realized something was off, talked to my mom about it, which got me a diagnosis and treatment, and I graduated with an Abitur. Loved rubbing that in her face when I ran into her later.
First off, as someone who took German 2 years in high school, I'm going to be mighty embarrassed by however badly I pronounced half of those German words, but fingers crossed. Second, to heck with that teacher. To heck with any teacher or counselor who tries to crap on some students' dreams or tells them that they're not going to accomplish as much as other students, stuff like that. Even if a student is doing poorly in school for whatever reason and their grades are down, you don't go, well, you don't have good grades, so your life is going to suck, or you're just going to have to flip burgers at McDonald's. Blah, 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 blah. That's not a good teacher. Encourage your students. Find ways to help them. Find their passions and stuff like that. I'm glad that you got to rub that in her face later on, and I hope that it was maybe a learning moment for that teacher to be like, maybe I shouldn't be such a judgmental jerk.
What is that one trick that they really don't want you to know? Viewer edition.
Oh man, that one trick that they don't want you to know. Fun fact, a lot of them do want you to know because you think you're going to get away with the trick and it just makes you be a customer more. Like, oh, here's a restaurant hack. If you go to Subway and you order extra broccoli, boop, 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 you get 2 sandwiches. They want you to know that. They want you to know because now you're going to go to Subway more and get their crappy sandwiches. I don't mind the chicken ones too much, but they're just not that great. You know what's good? Witch. We got that somewhere here in the cities. I got to find one of those again. Those are great. What am I talking about again? Story 1. I discovered by accident that Chipotle will give you your order for free on your birthday. I happened to be there on my birthday one year, and the person behind the counter assembling my burrito asked me if I wanted something that involved an upcharge. Normally I'd say no, but I thought out loud and said, it's my birthday. I'll splurge. The employee then called out to the cashier and said, this one's on the house because it's the customer's birthday. When I got to the cashier, I prepared to present my ID so that they could indeed confirm it's my birthday, but nope, they just rang it up for free on the register and moved on to the next customer. I haven't tried this since, but if they just take the customer at their word, this could really be abused. One does have to wonder if you didn't just come across like a manager or assistant manager on like a really good day and they just gave you a treat. I mean, maybe that's the case, and maybe now a bunch of people read your comment and have tried it and ended up just buying some Chipotle, which, yeah, there are worse things in the world. But hey, free burrito on your birthday. That's pretty great. Story 2. The speed study one. Yeah, right. My wife got a ticket for running a stop sign that had been removed days earlier. It was a small town with a 25 square mile jurisdiction and a 5-officer police force, half the town's entire staff. The cops knew it was removed, and it was removed by the town staff after somebody ran it over. It was replaced a few weeks before she finally went to trial. She has photos and videos of the hole where the sign used to be, the T intersection complete with standing street designs. Matching the location in the citation, the cop showed up, lied through our teeth, and denied the sign had been run over or removed, and the judge didn't think twice about not contradicting the cop, and he made her pay the ticket. Someone in the courtroom waiting their own trial started yelling about it and had to be told to be quiet. One came up to her expressing their outrage about it, and a couple of people just left the courtroom, presumably to try to reschedule their trials or even to pay their tickets and go home, because why waste hours more waiting for a trial before that judge? It might have worked if she had a lawyer, because the judges perk up and treat you like a human being if you have a lawyer all of a sudden. I've seen this in traffic court. But who pays a lawyer nearly $1,000 for a stop sign run ticket, unless they're about to lose their license or something? Yeah, unfortunately, I'm sure that there are plenty of stories like this about just some corruption and crap like this going on in the legal system. And I firmly want to believe that it's not everyone involved, that not every judge would be like this. I've seen those nice internet videos. So that there's that one judge who's common sense. He seems like a cool guy. But, yeah, I'm sure for every cool guy judge, there's a a-hole like this judge.
Story 3. The not confronting shoplifters rules are in place because the risk on you, other employees, customers, and the store should you intervene is almost always higher than whatever is being taken. It's always better to just file the insurance claim, especially since there's always the risk the shoplifter is armed. Stores also try to predict how much shrinkage, waste, spoilage, and shoplifting, among other things, they'll have in an accounting period so they can adjust prices and the like to control for that cost, since it is a cost on the business paid for by the honest customers. Story 4. 2 things I learnt in retail. 1, this is probably pretty much universal, but for the people who don't know, they raise the prices during the holiday months. So for November, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, December to Christmas and Boxing Day, February, Valentine's Day, and when all the big sales with the discounts are on, for example, Boxing Day, they just drop to the normal prices, leave them for a few days, and by the time the next month rolls around, they put the holiday prices back up. 2, the staff can drop prices as long as the price is more than what the store paid for it. They can drop the price. Just because the price tag says it's $100, if the system says $85 is still a reasonable price, then the staff can. But if the store is busy or a long line, just in case someone overhears.
Well, I can confirm that, yes, the stores do love to jack prices up on all sorts of stuff around holidays, and then you have holiday sales, where you get it for the normal price because they just drop it down from the raised prices. So that crap happens a lot. Any of you who think you're getting a deal on a television that's being sold for less than MSRP, they're always sold for less. If you've ever bought a TV at MSRP, you have been ripped off. But as far as the every employee can lower the price as long as it's above what the store paid, no. I've worked at some stores where that is against store policy. I worked at a store where if you just tried to give discounts like that just to make customers happy, you could get written up or fired. So let's not go badgering poor cashiers thinking that they can do this everywhere, please.
Story 5. I have one to add to number 22. Even among occupations that require a license, not every state actually does require a license, and you can legally operate as long as you disclose the fact that you are unlicensed, with some restrictions, of course. A big example of this are therapists. You can be a therapist in some states without a license or even any schooling or degree in your field. You just can't prescribe medication, and you're liable for any advice you give patients. But ultimately, it is up to the patient to decide to use you, knowing that you are unlicensed. The state licensing just means you have a degree and you passed a state exam, so you should have knowledge in therapeutic practices. But the term therapist has become so broad that there are plenty of types of therapy that do not require a degree or license to practice. Story 6. I used to work at the clothing store Express in PDX. We had a policy. Even if a customer walks out of the store with an entire stack of jeans, we cannot approach them or act on it. The idea was that we wanted to retain customers above all else, and if we embarrassed a thief, it meant they'd likely never move on to becoming a customer later down the line. Payless Shoes is out of business now, but I used to work there too. They had a 100% return policy guarantee. That meant if you had the receipt, the shoes, and the box, you could return them for store credit for whatever you paid for them, period. I had people for years who came in every 3 months with their shoes to return them after they wore them out for 3 months and then used that same money to get a new pair. Rinse, repeat. I worked there for several years, and this was a company-wide policy. As soon as anyone found that out, they were paying for shoes maybe 1 to 3 times per year and then just exchanging them no matter how worn they were, as long as they had a receipt in the boxes. It was a no questions asked policy, and they wondered why they went out of business. Story 7. Also, another interesting fact about speed limits is that if you're in the UK, the speed limit sign must be present on both sides of the road to be valid. If it's only on one side of the road, you can claim you didn't see it because it was only on one side of the road and technically get out of the speeding fine. If anyone here is from the UK and wondered why speed limit signs are always on both sides of the road, unlikely but possible someone was, this is why. Story 8. I have 2 that I can think of right now, both for the garbage disposer in your kitchen sink. 1. Underneath it is a slot for an Allen wrench. If something is wedged in the unit, you can usually manually turn it to free the device. I helped a friend who had a guest put some mollusk shells down the sink, and one was wedged under the blade. 2. On the big, scary, loud motor that's under the sink, somewhere on the unit should be a reset switch, similar/identical to the reset switch on a surge protector. Basically like this, something gets stuck in the disposer, it only hums but doesn't turn, and then it doesn't work at all. Do this. 1. Make sure the power is off. 2. Make sure the power is off. 3. See if you can turn the unit either clockwise or counterclockwise using an Allen wrench to free whatever is wedged in there, then reach in and pull it out. 4. After the obstruction is removed, find the reset button on the side and press it. You've easily saved yourself $100 from the house call from a plumber, probably more.
Oh, garbage disposals. They are the loudest, scariest thing in many an American kitchen. I heard it's not a big thing in Europe. I hear that some of you are confused that we have this, and I am too. Hate the thing. They're annoying to maintain, and they're scary as hell. And but yeah, no, if they get jammed up, this is very legitimate advice. I have used this advice, and yeah, don't call a plumber if you don't have to, but also don't take risks if you don't want to. Putting your hand in that thing is, I mean, that's horror movie bait right there.
What's the most messed up thing you've done only because you were turned on? Viewer edition.
Oh boy, if there's one thing I want to hear about, it's not just messed up stuff that you've all done, but messed up stuff you've done because your genitals were engorged. Why did I say that? Oh, that's terrible. Oh, I've started this video off on a terrible, terrible note. We need to stop. I should re-record this. Anyway, moving on. Story 1. So this is the story of how I lost my virginity. I was 15 and didn't have a learner's permit yet. I met a gal through MySpace, and our conversations got dirty pretty quick. Within a week, she talked me into attempting to come over to her place. The only issue was she lived 4 hours away on the highway. So what did I do? I tried to ride my mountain bike to see her. I started out in the morning with a pocket full of MapQuest printouts and a single bottle of water. Rode all day. Not able to ride on the interstate, I was riding over winding mountain roads, and some were unpaved. It got pretty late, and I decided to throw in the towel around 10 p.m. I'd only made it a quarter of the way. I called my mom over a payphone, and she was frantic over where I was. Nonetheless, she came and got me. Of course, I got one of those paternal lectures the whole way home, so the next night came. About 9:30, I decided I'm going to take my mom's car to go see the girl. Just to get you oriented with the layout, my mom's room is on the second floor, and so is mine, and the garage is directly under my mom's room. I sneak downstairs and into the garage. I unhook the latch and disconnect the garage door opener from the door and start manually lifting the door open. As soon as the first panel makes the curve on the track, the folding action of the hinge makes a loud clunk. I hear it, and I know my mom heard it. In a panic, I strip all my clothes down to just my jeans, no shirt, no shoes, no socks, and hurry to the refrigerator in the kitchen. Of course, my mom comes down while I'm standing there, staring in the open fridge. "What are you doing?" my mom asks with a bit of concern. "Oh, I just woke up hungry," I say as I lay on the BS. I crap you not. My mom makes me a damn sandwich right before I steal her car. OMG, I'm going to hell. All said and done, my mom goes to bed, and I go back into the garage and get dressed. Opening the door the rest of the way was a breeze. Now the hard part. Mom's got a 2002 Mustang. I can't start it anywhere near the house, so I gotta push it out the driveway and down the street. Thank God it wasn't a heavy car. Also, my only driving experience was dirt bikes and quads. I learned it didn't translate well into driving cars. For the life of me, I could not find third gear to the point I was letting go of the stick so it would center itself and I just shove it straight forward. After figuring everything out, I was off. Made the 4 hours away, met the gal, better looking on MySpace, OG catfished, and got laid in her parents' garage. Made home at 6 in the damn morning, only to get busted in the driveway anyway. Ah, the things that a young teenager will do in order to do the deed. I will say, folks, don't go to any wild, crazy extremes for that kind of stuff. I'm gonna say that here just because I don't want to encourage things. Certainly don't steal your mom's car, as funny as that is. And don't ride a mountain bike on what should be a 4-hour drive through mountain passes. Oh my gosh. If you had made it, what was your plan? To just flop on the ground and be like, "I'm ready." But hey, you did it. Story 2. I read somewhere that one of the Harry Potter toy brooms would vibrate and became very popular with boys and girls alike, and the girls would borrow their brother's broom. Obviously, the broom was withdrawn from sale after they started turning up in adult toy shops.
Story 3. Well, might as well get it out here. When I was 17, almost 18, I went next door to my neighbor's house during a party they were having. They always have these parties there, and we were told it was a gay, trans, bisexual party. They held them at least once a month and had always had plenty of guests. It took me a while to earn up the actual courage to go there, as I still didn't know if I was gay or bi or whatever. I just knew I wanted to experience a real D instead of the toys I was using. Mostly homemade bottles, things like that. When I finally went, I remember I told everyone I was 18 and remember them giving me wine and talking to me, as I was honestly super nervous about asking anyone there if they were even interested in having intercourse. I remember telling them I enjoyed wearing women's clothing and it made me feel some type of way. And eventually a few of them talked me into going to try dressing up in another room into some women's lingerie. It didn't fit, LOL. I was walking out of the bathroom saying how it didn't fit when I noticed like 3 guys already naked and one more taking his pants off. I was embarrassed and tried turning around saying sorry when one of them walked up behind me and grabbed my shoulder saying, "No, baby, this is for you, if you want to try it." To which I remember him grabbing my head and pushing me down on my knees, and yeah, the rest is history, and to this day my parents still don't know that for years after, I kept going to these parties and my neighbors were totally cool not saying anything to anyone.
I mean, there's a lot going on here. I will say 17, almost 18. Don't do that, folks. Let's not replicate this. Be honest about your age. You don't want to get other people in trouble, and that's... But whatever. Moving on. It's happened. The fact that you were able to go someplace with like-minded people and experiment, stuff like that... and getting into your 18s, it sounded like you did it for years after and stuff. It seems like a safe environment where people were encouraging, and I was a little concerned about the head getting pushed down, but it sounded like, with how you went back and all that stuff, that it was something that you mean to sound that you were into. I certainly hope. I don't know if big parties like this are something I, fully recommend for folks, just because... STDs, stuff like that. You want to make sure people are tested and being safe. But at the very least, finding people who will allow you to experiment and discover things about yourself is important. So I'm glad you were at least able to find that.
Story 4. So yeah, I'm a woman, and on more than a few occasions, I've pleased my lady bits while driving rather fast. And before anyone asks, this has always been at night on a road through the middle of nowhere with no one around me. Not gonna risk hurting other people over an insane O. Story 5. I'm into some weird stuff. If you know me, you know. But to the untrained individual, a lot of it doesn't immediately register as adult entertainment unless you're online enough. When I was in elementary school, I would read stories about it in my free time, and one time got bold enough to print it out. Pro tip, while browsing history is usually too big to sift through, print jobs are not. I was caught, obviously, and scolded, but I couldn't have my computer privileges taken away because I needed them for class. I think I managed to hide the printout well enough to keep them until I was caught with them later down the line. Because I never learned my lesson, I did it again at the next school I went to. Had my mom come up to me with no context and go, "Hey, Azriel, what's insert name of fetish site here?" And I just had to go, "Nothing, don't worry about it. How did you get that name?" I got the message about keeping things discreet after that. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.